September 7th, 1870-6. Northfield, Minnesota. A man stood in the middle of a dirt street. Bullets flew past his head like angry hornets. All around him, the world exploded with gunfire and screaming. His name was Cole Younger, and in the next 5 minutes, he would be shot 11 times, but he would not fall. Not yet, not until he saved his brothers. This is the story of that man, the outlaw who rode with Jesse James, the criminal who terrorized the American frontier, the prisoner who spent 25 years behind bars, and the old man who lived long enough to regret every single choice he made. But before Cole Younger became one of the most feared outlaws in the Wild West, he was just a boy from Missouri, a boy with a family, a boy with a future, a boy who lost everything in one terrible day. 1844, Jackson County, Missouri. The baby boy born that winter had no idea what kind of life waited for him. His parents named him Thomas Coleman Younger. Everyone called him Cole. The Younger family was not poor. They were not desperate. They were not criminals. Cole's father, Henry Younger, owned a large farm. He was respected in the community. He had money. He had influence. He had plans for his children. Young Cole grew up with everything a boy could want: good food, a warm bed, brothers and sisters to play with, land to explore, horses to ride. He learned to shoot when he was just 7 years old. His father taught him. In those days, every farm boy learned to hunt. It was part of life on the frontier. Cole was smart. Went to school. He read books. He had opportunities that many children never got. His future looked bright, but this was Missouri in the 1840s. And Missouri was a dangerous place to grow up. You see, Missouri sat right on the border, between North and South, between freedom and slavery, between two Americas that hated each other. Neighbor fought neighbor, brother fought brother, friend fought friend. The question was simple. Should men be allowed to own other men as slaves? Some said yes. Some said no, and they were willing to kill each other over the answer. The Younger family owned slaves. Henry Younger supported the South. He believed in the Confederate cause. That belief would cost him everything. 1860-2. Cole was just 17 years old. Still a teenager. Still learning about the world. One day he came home to find his father missing. Henry Younger had been ambushed on the road. Union militiamen stopped him. They accused him of helping Confederate guerrillas. They did not arrest him. They did not give him a trial. They shot him dead on the spot. Imagine that for a moment. You are 17 years old. You ride home from town. You expect to see your father working in the fields. You expect dinner with your family. You expect a normal day. Instead, you find your mother crying, your brothers and sisters terrified, and your father, gone, murdered, just like that. Cole Younger's childhood ended. But the nightmare was not over. The Union militiamen came to the farm. They accused the Younger family of being Confederate sympathizers, Southern traitors. They burned the house. They burned the barns. They took the livestock. They destroyed everything the family had built. Cole's mother, Bathsheba, had to flee with the younger children. They had nowhere to go. No home, no money, no protection. Everything Cole had known was now ashes and memories. Now put yourself in that boy's shoes. The men who killed your father were never punished. The men who burned your home were celebrated as heroes. The government that destroyed your family claimed to be bringing justice. What would you do? Would you forgive and forget? Would you turn the other cheek? Would you start over and build a new life? Or would you want revenge? Cole Younger chose revenge. In 1861, at just 17 years old, he joined the Confederate guerrilla fighters. But these were not regular soldiers in neat uniforms, marching in straight lines. These were ghosts, raiders, killers. They called themselves Quantrill's Raiders, named after their leader, William Quantrill, and they fought a war with no rules. Cole learned to kill before most boys learned to shave. He learned to shoot a man from 100 yards away. He learned to burn a town to the ground. He learned to ride all day and all night, without rest. He learned to look a man in the eyes and pull the trigger without hesitation. The Civil War turned boys into monsters, and Cole Younger was no exception. He rode alongside men who would become legends. Frank James, Jesse James, Bloody Bill Anderson. They did not fight on battlefields. They ambushed supply trains. They burned Union towns. They killed soldiers and civilians alike. One raid in Lawrence, Kansas, left 180 men and boys dead. Cole was there. Another massacre in Centralia, Missouri, slaughtered 24 unarmed Union soldiers. Cole was there too. The war taught him many things: how to survive, how to shoot, how to escape. But most importantly, it taught him that violence was the answer to every problem. When the war ended in 1865, Cole was 21 years old. He had spent his entire young adulthood killing people. He knew nothing else. He had seen nothing else. He had lived nothing else. And now the Confederacy had lost. The men who killed his father had won. Missouri was under Union control. Former Confederate guerrillas could not vote, could not own land, could not live normal lives. They were hunted, hated, unwanted. So Cole Younger stood at a crossroads. He could try to build an honest life in a world that did not want him, or he could continue down the path of violence. He chose violence, and that choice would haunt him for the next 50 years. *1861 Missouri. Cole Younger was 17 years old. His father was dead. His home was burned. His family was scattered, and he had a choice to make. He could run, hide, try to survive, or he could fight back. Cole chose to fight. But the army he joined was not like any army the world had ever seen. They wore no uniforms. They followed no rules. They showed no mercy. They were called Quantrill's Raiders, and they turned the Civil War into a nightmare. William Clark Quantrill was a school teacher before the war. A quiet man, an educated man. But when war came, something dark awakened inside him. He formed a band of Confederate guerrilla fighters in Missouri. These were not soldiers marching to drums and bugles. These were hunters, killers, shadows that struck without warning. Cole Younger joined Quantrill's Raiders in the autumn of 1860-1. He was just a boy seeking revenge for his murdered father. What he became was something else entirely. Guerrilla warfare is not like regular war. In regular war, armies face each other on battlefields. Men wear uniforms, officers give orders, there are rules, codes of conduct, prisoners are taken, the wounded are treated. Guerrilla warfare has none of that. It is ambush and murder, burning and terror. It is killing men while they sleep. It is shooting unarmed civilians. It is making the enemy too afraid to leave their camps. Cole learned this new kind of war quickly. His first raid, he probably hesitated. His hands probably shook when he raised his gun. His stomach probably turned when he saw blood. But by his 10th raid, his hands were steady. By his 20th, he felt nothing at all. The names of those raids still echoed through history like distant thunder. Lawrence, Kansas. August 21st, 1863. Quantrill led 450 men into the sleeping town at dawn. Cole Younger rode with them. They killed every man and boy they could find. Some victims were still in their night clothes. Some begged for their lives. Some tried to run. It did not matter. By the time the sun reached its peak, 183 men and boys lay dead in the streets. The town burned for days. Cole was there. He saw it all. He participated in it all. Centralia, Missouri. September 27, 1860-4, Bloody Bill Anderson led this raid. Cole rode beside him. They stopped the train, forced all the passengers off. Among them were 24 unarmed Union soldiers. Going home on leave, the guerrillas lined them up and shot them all, one by one. Then they mutilated the bodies, scalped them, cut off their ears. This was not war. This was butchery. And Cole Younger was part of it. What happens to a boy when he sees such things? What happens when killing becomes normal? When violence becomes routine? When death becomes just another day? Cole stopped thinking of his enemies as people. They were just targets, obstacles, things to be removed. He learned to sleep with the screams of dying men in his ears. He learned to eat breakfast with blood on his hands. He learned to laugh and joke hours after killing someone. The war was turning him into a machine, a weapon, a ghost. Asterisk, but Cole was not just a mindless killer. He was smart, strategic, observant. He learned how to plan ambushes, how to read terrain, how to predict enemy movements. He learned which roads the Union troops used, which bridges they crossed, which towns they occupied. He learned how to disappear into the woods, how to hide his tracks, how to escape when outnumbered 10-1. These skills would serve him well in his future career, because Cole was learning how to be a professional criminal. Among the raiders, Cole met men who would change his life. Frank James, 3 years older than Cole, quiet, intelligent, deadly with a pistol. Jesse James, Frank's younger brother, wild, reckless, fearless. Bill Anderson. They called him Bloody Bill, the cruelest of them all. These men became Cole's family, his brothers in blood and fire. They trusted each other with their lives. They protected each other. They killed for each other. And when the war ended, they would continue their brotherhood. But now, in the darkest years of the war, they were just young men learning to survive in hell. By 1865, Cole Younger had been at war for 4 years. He was 21 years old. Most 21-year-olds are just starting their lives, finding careers, getting married, building futures. Cole had killed more men than he could. County had burned towns, robbed trains, executed prisoners, terrorized civilians. He had become exactly what the war wanted him to be, a killer. And then, suddenly, the war was over. April 9th, 1865. Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. The Confederacy was dead. The South had lost all that killing, all that blood, all that horror, for nothing. Cole and his fellow raiders faced a terrible reality. The Union had won. Missouri was under Northern control. Former Confederates were hunted, arrested, hanged. The guerrilla fighters were considered terrorists, murderers, war criminals. They could not go home. They could not find honest work. They could not live normal lives. The men who had taught Cole to kill now asked him a question. What do we do now? Cole looked at his brothers in arms. Frank James, Jesse James. The others, they had spent 4 years robbing Union supply trains, stealing money, taking what they needed to survive. Why stop now? If society would not let them be honest men, they would be what they knew best, outlaws that war had created them. Now they would create their own war against the banks, against the railroads, against the system that had destroyed their world. The James Younger gang was about to be born, and the American West would never be the same. Asterisk, February 13th, 1866. Liberty, Missouri. It was just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A Tuesday, cold and gray. Inside the Clay County Savings Association, 2 cashiers worked quietly at their desks, counting money, recording transactions, doing ordinary bank work on an ordinary day. Then the door opened. 2 men walked in. They wore heavy coats. Their faces were calm, normal, but their hands held revolvers. Hand over the money, one of them said. Now, in the next 12 minutes, those men would steal $60,000, and they would make history. This was the first daylight. Bank robbery in peacetime America. The Jim's Younger gang had arrived. The war was over, but Cole Younger and his brothers were not done fighting. They had learned too much. Killing, stealing, surviving by the gun. Those skills were worthless in peacetime. Unless you used them for crime, Cole joined forces with the men he trusted most. The men he had fought beside during the war. Frank James, 33 years old, cold calculating, the brain of the operation. Jesse, James, 18 years old, hot-tempered, fearless, the face of the gang. Cole's brothers joined too. Jim Younger, John Younger, Bob Younger. Together, they formed the most famous outlaw gang in American history. That first robbery in Liberty was almost too easy. They walked in, drew their guns, took the money from the vault. The cashiers were too terrified to resist. The citizens outside had no idea what was happening. By the time anyone realized a crime had occurred, the gang was miles away. $60,000. Split among 12 men, more money than most people, earned in a lifetime, and they had taken it in 12 minutes. The newspapers exploded with the story, daring daylight robbery. The headlines screamed, bandits strike in broad daylight. The public was shocked, fascinated, horrified. Banks were supposed to be safe, untouchable, protected, but these men had walked in like they owned the place, taken what they wanted, and vanished like smoke. Cole read those newspapers and smiled. They had pulled it off, and nobody knew who they were. Not yet, but there was blood on that money as the gang fled Liberty. A young college student named George Wymore heard the commotion. He stepped into the street to see what was happening. One of the gang members shot him dead. Wymore was 19 years old, innocent, just curious about the noise. He became the first victim of the James Younger gang. He would not be the last. Over the next 10 years, the gang struck again and again. Lexington, Missouri, Savannah, Missouri, Richmond, Missouri. They robbed banks. They robbed trains. They took thousands and thousands of dollars. Their method was always the same. Ride into town, hit the bank, shoot anyone who resisted, disappear into the countryside. Cole became the public face of the gang. 6 feet tall, handsome, educated, charming. He would quote Shakespeare while pointing a gun at your head. He would tip his hat to ladies while robbing their bank. The newspapers loved him. They wrote stories about the gentleman outlaw, the Robin Hood of Missouri. But Cole Younger was not Robin Hood. Robin Hood stole from the rich and gave to the poor. Cole stole from everyone and kept it for himself. The gang did not help struggling farmers. They did not feed hungry families. They did not fight for justice. They killed bank tellers. They murdered lawmen. They shot innocent bystanders who got in their way. In Gallatin, Missouri, they killed cashier John Sheets. Shot him in cold blood when he moved to Slowly in Columbia, Kentucky. They killed cashier Rock Martin. He refused to open the vault. These were not rich bankers. These were working men with families. Men just doing their jobs. But the public did not care about the truth. To Southerners still angry about losing the war, the James Younger gang were heroes. Rebels striking back at northern banks and Yankee railroads. Songs were written about them. Stories were told. Legends were born. Jesse James became the most famous outlaw in America. His face appeared on wanted posters from Missouri to Texas. Cole. Cole was his right-hand man, his partner, his friend. Together, they seemed unstoppable. But the law was closing in. The Pinkerton Detective Agency was hired to hunt them down. These were not local sheriffs or small-town marshals. These were professional manhunters. They tracked the gang relentlessly, set traps, raided homes, interrogated witnesses. In 1875, Pinkerton agents surrounded the James family farm. They threw a bomb through the window. The explosion killed Jesse's 8-year-old half-brother, Archie. It blew off his mother's arm. Jesse swore revenge. The violence escalated. More robberies, more killings, more blood. Cole was getting tired. He was 30 years old. He had been running for a decade, always looking over his shoulder, always one step ahead of the law. The money was good, but the life was exhausting. How long could they keep this up? How long before their luck ran out? He did not have to wait long for the answer. 1876. Summer. The gang needed a big score. Something to set them up for life. Something that would let them retire. Jesse had an idea. A bank in Minnesota, far from their usual territory. Rich, unprotected, the First National Bank of Northfield. It seemed perfect. Nobody knew them up there. The law would not expect them. It should be easy. Cole had doubts. Minnesota was unfamiliar territory. They had no safe houses, no friendly locals, no escape routes. But Jesse would not listen. He wanted this score, so Cole agreed. Family was family. Brothers stayed together. On September 7, 1876, 8 men rode toward Northfield, Minnesota. Cole Younger, Jim Younger, Bob Younger, Jesse James, Frank James, Charlie Pitts, Clell Miller, Bill Miller. Bill Chadwell *. They thought they were riding toward their biggest payday. They were actually riding toward their doom. In 2 hours, the James Younger gang would be destroyed, and Cole Younger's life would end. Not with death, with something worse. September 1st, 1870-6.8 men rode north from Missouri, horses loaded with supplies, saddlebags ready for gold, guns cleaned and oiled. They were heading to Minnesota, to a small town called Northfield, to a bank that held their future. At least, that was the plan. But Cole Younger felt something wrong in his gut. A warning, a whisper of doom. He had ignored warnings before. During the war, during robberies. He had always survived. This time would be different. The idea came from Jesse James. He had heard about the First National Bank of Northfield. Rich deposits, wealthy customers, thousands of dollars just sitting in the vault. And it was far from Missouri, far from Pinkerton detectives, far from lawmen who knew their faces. Jesse sought opportunity. Cole saw danger. It is too far. Cole said during the planning, "We do not know the territory. We have no friends there, no safe houses, no escape routes." Jesse waved off his concerns. "That is exactly why it will work. They will not expect us. Nobody knows us up there." "That cuts both ways," Cole argued. "If something goes wrong, we have nowhere to hide. Nobody to help us." Frank James agreed with Cole. So did some of the others. But Jesse was determined. And when Jesse James wanted something, he usually got it. So they rode north. Into unfamiliar country. 8 men, a brotherhood forged in war and crime. Cole Younger, 32 years old. Battle-scarred experience, Jim Younger. 28, Cole's brother. Loyal to the end, Bob Younger. 23, the youngest brother. Eager to prove himself, Jesse James. 28, the leader. The legend, Frank James. 33, Jesse's older brother. The careful one, Charlie Pitts. Real name, Samuel Wells. 32, a trusted member, Clell Miller. 32, a veteran of Quantrill's Raiders, Bill Chadwell. Real name, William Stiles. 27, he knew Minnesota. He was their guy. They traveled in small groups. 2 or 3 men at a time. They did not want to draw attention. They told people they were cattle buyers, businessmen, travelers, nobody. Suspected they were outlaws. The journey took a week. Through Iowa, into Minnesota. Every mile Cole's unease grew stronger. This felt wrong, different from their other jobs, but he said nothing more. The decision was made. Asterisk. Northfield, Minnesota was a quiet town. About 3,000 people. Peaceful, respectable. It sat on a cannon, river, had flour, mills, farms, churches, schools. The people there were mostly farmers and merchants, hardworking, honest. They had no reason to fear outlaws from Missoula. The First National Bank stood on Division Street, a solid brick building, 2 stories, windows facing the street. Inside that building sat $40,000, or so the gang believed. September 7th, the day arrived. The gang gathered outside town. They reviewed the plan one final time. 3 men would enter the bank: Jesse, Bob Younger, Charlie Pitts. They would control the clerks, open the vault, fill the grain sacks with money. 3 men would guard the street outside: Clell Miller, Bill Chadwell. They would watch for trouble, keep citizens away, provide cover. 2 men would wait at the edge of town: Frank James, Jim Younger. They would hold extra horses, cover the escape route. Simple, clean. They had done it a dozen times before. They checked their weapons. Cole carried 2 revolvers, fully loaded, extra ammunition in his pockets. They synchronized their watches. 2 o'clock. That was the time. They reviewed escape routes. West out of town, toward the big woods. Lose the posse in the forest. Everything was planned. Everything was ready, except for one thing they could not plan for: the people of Northfield. The gang did not know that Northfield citizens were armed, heavily armed. They did not know that many of these people were Civil War veterans, men who had fought, men who knew how to shoot. They did not know that the hardware store on Division Street sold rifles, and that the owner would hand them out for free if the town was attacked. They did not know any of this, because they were strangers in a strange land at 1:30 in the afternoon. The gang rode into Northfield. They came in pairs, casual, unhurried, just travelers passing through. Cole rode beside Clell Miller. They tied their horses near the bank, leaned against a fence, tried to look bored. Jesse, Bob, and Charlie approached the bank. They glanced around, checked the street. Everything seemed quiet. Frank and Jim waited at the edge of town, watching, ready at 2 o'clock. Jesse gave the signal. Time to move. Jesse, Bob, Charlie. They walked toward the bank. Entrance. Their boots echoed on the wooden sidewalk. Their hands moved toward their guns. Their hearts pounded. This was it. The big score, the retirement job. They pushed open the door, stepped inside, drew their revolvers. "This is a robbery," Jesse shouted. Outside, Cole watched the bank door close behind them. He scanned the street, looking for trouble, seeing none. Citizens walked past. Shopkeepers swept their porches. A normal Thursday afternoon. Cole allowed himself to relax. Just a little. Maybe this would work after all. Maybe Jesse was right. Maybe inside the bank, a cashier screamed. The sound carried through the open windows. A citizen on the street heard it, understood what it meant. He turned, ran, shouted at the top of his lungs. Robbery. They are robbing the bank. Get your guns. Cole's blood went cold. This was the nightmare, the thing he had feared. The alarm was raised. The town knew. The element of surprise was gone, and his brothers were trapped inside that bank. Within seconds, the quiet street transformed into a war zone. Men ran from shops, carrying rifles. Women screamed. Children scattered. Cole drew his revolvers. Here we go, he thought. God help us all. The next 15 minutes would be the bloodiest of Cole Younger's life. He would be shot 11 times. 2 of his friends would die in the street. His brothers would be wounded. captured, and the James Younger gang would be destroyed. Forever the disaster had begun. Asterisk robbery. Get your guns. The shout echoed down Division Street like a thunderclap. Cole Younger heard it. His stomach dropped. Everything was about to go wrong. Inside the First National Bank, Jesse James pointed. His revolver at the head cashier, Joseph Haywood, opened the safe. Now, Haywood was a quiet man, a bookkeeper. He had never been threatened with a gun before, but he did not panic. He did not obey. I cannot, he said calmly. It is on a time lock. He was lying. The safe was not locked at all. But the robbers did not know that Jesse cocked his pistol. Open it or I will blow your head off. Haywood looked him in the eye. I cannot open it. Outside, the street exploded. Cole saw them coming. Citizens, dozens of them, running from every direction. They carried rifles, shotguns, hunting weapons. A man named Henry Wheeler grabbed a rifle from the hardware store. He ran upstairs to a second-floor window. J.S. Allen, the store owner, handed out weapons to anyone who wanted one. Ansel Manning grabbed a shotgun and took position across the street. These were not lawmen. They were farmers, merchants, shopkeepers, but they were Civil War veterans. They knew how to fight, and they were defending their town. Cole fired his first shot, a warning, trying to scatter the crowd. It had the opposite effect. The citizens fired. Back, bullets whizzed past Cole's head, chipped the wood beside him, kicked up dirt at his feet. Clell Miller, standing next to Cole, took a bullet in his shoulder. He grunted, kept firing. Bill Chadwell ran toward his horse. A rifle shot rang out from above. Chadwell stumbled, grabbed his chest. Blood poured between his fingers. He fell face first into the dirt. Dead. Cole saw his friend die. They had fought together during the war, ridden together for years. Now he was gone. Just like that, and the shooting had barely started. Inside the bank, chaos reigned. Haywood still refused to open the safe. Jesse pistol whipped him. Blood ran down the cashier's face. Bob Younger heard the gunfire outside. We need to leave now. But Jesse was furious. They came all this way for nothing. Charlie Pitts grabbed coins from the counter, a few $100s. Worthless compared to what they wanted. Come on, Bob shouted. They are killing us out there. Outside, a Swedish immigrant named Nikolaus Gustafsson walked into the street. He did not speak English well. He did not understand what was happening. He was just curious about the noise. Clell Miller, panicked and bleeding, saw him approach. He fired. Gustafsson fell, shot in the head. He would die 4 days later. Another innocent victim, Henry Wheeler, from his second-floor window, took careful aim. He fired at Clell Miller. The bullet hit Miller in the face, below the eye, shattered bone, severed arteries. Miller dropped his gun, clutched his face. Blood poured through his fingers. He tried to mount his horse. Failed. Fell. The horse bolted. Left him in the street. Miller crawled toward cover, trying to escape, dying with every heartbeat. Another shot rang out. Hit him in the back. Clell Miller stopped moving. 2 gang members dead, and they had not even left the bank yet. Jesse had had enough. If Haywood would not open the safe, he served no purpose. Jesse aimed his revolver at the cashier's head and pulled the trigger. Joseph Haywood collapsed. Blood pooled beneath him. He had refused to betray his duty. It cost him his life. The 3 robbers ran for the door, empty-handed except for a few coins. The biggest robbery of their career had netted them almost nothing. Jesse, Bob, and Charlie burst from the bank. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Windows, rooftops, doorways. It was like running through a metal storm. Bob Younger felt fire in his right elbow. A bullet shattered the joint. His arm went numb, useless. He kept running. What choice did he have? Cole saw his younger brother Bob stumbling. Saw blood on his arm. Get to the horses, Cole shouted. He provided cover fire, shooting at windows, trying to give Bob time. Then he saw Jim, his other brother, running toward them. A rifle cracked. Jim's head snapped back. The bullet entered below. His jaw tore through his mouth. Shattered teeth and bone. Lodged near his brain. Jim fell. Blood poured from his ruined face. No, Cole screamed. He ran to his brother. Bullets whipped past him. He grabbed Jim, lifted him, half carried, half dragged him toward the horses. A bullet hit Cole in the thigh. He stumbled, kept moving. Another hit his shoulder. He grunted, kept moving. A third grazed his ribs. He kept moving. Jesse James was already mounted. We have two. Go. Leave him. No. Cole roared back. We do not leave family. Another bullet hit Cole. His hip this time. Pain exploded through his body. He hoisted Jim onto a horse. Bob was already mounted, one-armed, barely conscious. Frank James rode up beside Cole. Can you ride? Cole had been shot 5 times now. Blood soaked his clothes. I can ride, he growled. They spurred their horses, fled west. 8 men had entered Northfield. Only 6 left alive. Bullets chased them down the street. Citizens fired from every angle. Another shot hit Cole, his back. The bullet lodged near his spine. He swayed in the saddle, caught himself, kept riding. 7 bullets now, then 8. His other shoulder .9, his leg again .10, his side .11, his back 11. Bullets in his body, but Cole Younger would not fall. Not while his brothers needed him. The gang galloped out of Northfield into the countryside, toward the big woods behind them. Them, 2 friends, lay dead in the street out ahead of them. 1,000 armed men would soon give chase. They had stolen almost nothing. Lost everything, and Cole Younger, bleeding from 11 wounds, knew the truth. They were not going to make it home. Asterisk September 7, 1876. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 men rode hard through the Minnesota countryside. Wounded, bleeding. Dyspeptic Cole Younger slumped in his saddle. 11 bullets in his body. Blood soaking through his clothes. Every breath was agony. Every heartbeat was fire. But he could not stop. Not yet. Behind them, Northfield was raising an army. Asterisks within an hour, the telegraph wires hummed with news. Bank robbery, Northfield. 2 robbers dead. Gang heading west. Armed and dangerous. Every town in Minnesota received the message. Every sheriff, every marshal. Citizens grabbed their guns. Farmers left their fields. Veterans remembered their training. They formed posses, hunting parties, hundreds of men, then thousands. All searching for 6 outlaws. Night fell. The gang stopped in the woods to assess their wounds. Jim Younger could barely speak. The bullet in his jaw had destroyed his mouth. Blood bubbled when he tried to talk. Bob Younger's right arm hung useless. The shattered elbow would never heal properly. Cole had 11 wounds. He counted them, 11 holes in his body. How was he still alive? Charlie Pitts had taken 2 bullets, but he could still ride. Frank and Jesse James were mostly unharmed. Lucky, as always. Jesse looked at the Younger brothers. Broken, bleeding, dying. We need to split up, he said quietly. We are too easy to track as a group. Cole knew what that meant. Jesse wanted to abandon them. We stay together, Cole said through gritted teeth. Be realistic, Jesse argued. You are slowing us down. All 3 of you are shot to pieces. You cannot ride fast. You cannot fight. You are dead weights. The words cut deeper than any bullet. Cole looked at his brothers. Jim, barely conscious. Bob, white-faced from blood loss. He looked at Jesse and Frank, his friends, his brothers in arms for 15 years. Then he made his decision. You to go. We will take our chances. Frank hesitated. He had fought beside the youngers since the war. They had saved his life. He had saved theirs. But Jesse was already mounting his horse. Good luck, Jesse said. And he meant it. Frank looked back one last time. Sadness in his eyes. Then they were gone. Swallowed by the darkness, 4 men remained. Cole, Jim, Bob, Charlie Pitts. 3 of them could barely sit upright. One of them was loyal to the end. They were trapped in Minnesota, wounded, unfamiliar with the territory, with no help coming, and behind them, an army was gathering. For 2 weeks, they ran. They hid in swamps, slept in ditches, stole food from farms. They could not ride anymore. The horses were too easy to track, too conspicuous, so they walked, limped, crawled when they had to. Cole's wounds festered. Infection set in. Fever burned through him. Jim could not eat. His broken jaw would not work. He grew weaker every day. Bob's arm turned black. Gangrene threatened, but they kept moving. What else could they do? Behind them, 1,000 men hunted. Trackers followed their blood trail. Dogs caught their scent. Posses searched every barn, every cave, every hiding place. The outlaws heard them at night. Voices calling in the darkness. Hounds baying. The sound of men crashing through the forest. Several times, they nearly walked into ambushes. Only Cole's war-trained instinct saved them. But luck could not last forever. 2 weeks after Northfield, near Madelia, Minnesota, the 4 outlaws stumbled through a swamp, exhausted, starving, at the end of their strength. A farmer spotted them, ran to town, raised the alarm. Within an hour, a posse surrounded the swamp. 7 men, armed with rifles and shotguns. There was no escape this time. The posse called out from the trees. You are surrounded. Throw down your weapons. Come out with your hands up. Cole looked at his companions. His brothers, his friend, they could fight. Die with guns in their hands. Go out like outlaws. Or they could surrender. Face trial, probably. Hanged Charlie Pitts made the decision for them. I am not going to prison, he said quietly. Before Cole could stop him, Charlie stood up, rifle raised, ready to fight. Charlie, no, too late. 7 rifles fired as one. The sound was deafening. Charlie. Pitts jerked like a puppet with cut strings. Bullets tore through him, chest, stomach, head. He fell backward into the water, dead before he hit the ground. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Charlie's body floated in the swamp, blood spreading in the water. 3 men remained. The younger brothers. Cole looked at Jim, half his face destroyed, unable to speak, dying slowly. He looked at Bob, 23 years old, his arm ruined, his future gone. Cole Younger had fought for 15 years. In war, in crime, in violence, he had killed men, robbed banks, lived by the gun. But he could not watch his brothers die in a swamp. Slowly, painfully, Cole stood up. Hands raised, empty. We surrender, he shouted. Do not shoot. We surrender. The posse held their fire, waiting, suspicious. Cole helped Jim to his feet, then Bob. 3 brothers, shot to pieces, bleeding, broken. They stumbled out of the swamp, hands in the air. The posse stared at them in shock. How were these men still alive? They counted Cole's wounds. 11 bullets. 11 separate wounds. Jim's shattered jaw. Bob's destroyed elbow. Get them to a doctor, someone said, before they bleed out. Cole collapsed. Finally, after 2 weeks of running, After holding his brothers together through sheer willpower, he fell to his knees, then onto his side. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the sky. Free sky, open sky. He would not see it again for 25 years. The Northfield raid was over. The James Younger gang was destroyed. 2 members dead in Northfield. 1 dead in the swamp, 2 escaped to live on, and 3 brothers captured, wounded, facing justice. Cole Younger's life as an outlaw had ended. His life as a prisoner was about to begin. Asterisk, November 14th, 1870-6, Rice County Courthouse, Faribault, Minnesota. 3 men stood before the judge. Bandages covered their wounds. Chains bound their wrists. Cole Younger, Jim Younger, Bob Younger. The trial lasted 1 day, just 1 day to decide their fate. Their lawyer offered simple advice: plead guilty, beg for mercy, or you will hang. The brothers had no choice. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses saw everything. 2 men were dead. They pleaded guilty to murder and robbery. The courtroom was silent as the judge spoke. I sentence you to life imprisonment at the Minnesota State Penitentiary in Stillwater. You will serve your time at hard labor. May God have mercy on your souls. Cole was 32 years old. He would not taste freedom again for 25 years. Stillwater prison sat on the banks of the St. Croix River. Gray stone walls, iron bars, cold and lifeless. Inside those walls, 1,000 men lived in cages. Criminals, murderers, thieves. The Younger brothers joined them in November 1876. They were given numbers. Cole was prisoner number 687. Not a name, not a person, just a number. Prison life was brutal. Simple, dehumanizing. Wake at 5 in the morning. Work 12 hours a day, making buckets, twine, furniture, whatever the prison required. Eat tasteless food, sleep on hard bunks, speak when spoken to, obey every order. No visitors for the first year, no letters, no contact with the outside world. The guards were harsh, the rules were strict. 1 mistake meant punishment, solitary confinement, beatings, starvation rations. Many prisoners broke under the weight, went mad, gave up, died. Cole faced a choice, the same choice every prisoner faces. He could become bitter, angry, let the prison destroy his spirit, or he could survive, adapt, become something better. Most expected him to fight, to resist, to cause trouble. Cole surprised everyone. He became a model prisoner. At first, nobody understood. Why would the famous outlaw Cole Younger obey the rules? Why would he accept punishment quietly? The answer was simple. Cole was tired of fighting, tired of running, tired of violence. He had spent 15 years at war, with the Union, with the law, with society. And where had it gotten him? Behind bars, his brothers wounded, his friends dead. The outlaw life was a lie. Crime did not pay. It never had. So Cole chose a different path. Asterisk, he volunteered for the prison library. Reading had always been his escape. The warden, skeptical at first, gave him a chance. Cole organized the books, helped other prisoners learn to read, recommended stories and histories. He became the librarian, the man prisoners came to for advice, for hope, for guidance. He studied, read philosophy, literature, religion. He educated himself in ways he never had during his outlaw years. Slowly, year by year, Cole Younger changed. Asterisk, but prison took its toll. Bob Younger, the youngest brother, never recovered from his wounds. The shattered elbow, the bullet scars, the infections. His health deteriorated year after year, getting weaker. In 1889, tuberculosis took him. He was 35 years old. He died in his cell, in chains, far from home. Cole held his brother's hand as he passed, watched the light fade from his eyes. It was the first time Cole had cried since the war. Bob's death changed. Something in Cole made him realize how much time was being wasted. He had already lost 13 years. His brother had lost everything. For what? For robbing banks? For some misguided sense of revenge? Cole made a vow over Bob's grave. If he ever got out, if he ever tasted freedom again, he would spend every remaining day warning young men not to make his mistakes. Time crawled in prison. Days became weeks, weeks became years, years became decades. Cole turned 40. Then 50. Jim, his remaining brother, suffered worse than anyone. The bullet in his jaw never healed properly. He could barely eat, could barely speak. The disfigurement haunted him. The shame, the regret, but Cole never gave up. He kept reading, kept working, kept hoping. He mentored younger prisoners, told them his story, showed them what crime really cost. Some listened, some changed, some found hope in his words. July 18, 1900-1. After 25 years, 9,125 days. The prison gates opened. Cole and Jim Younger walked out. Free men at last. Cole was 57 years old. Jim was 50-3. They had entered prison in their prime. They left as old men, gray-haired, scarred. Changed. The world outside was different. Automobiles on the streets, electric lights, telephones, everything had changed. But freedom tasted sweet. Even freedom restricted by parole conditions. But Jim could not handle it. For 25 years, he had dreamed of freedom. Imagined what it would be like. The reality crushed him. People stared at his ruined face, his disfigurement. They whispered, pointed. He could not find work, could not build a new life, could not escape his past. The shame was too much. The regret too heavy. The lost years too painful. On October 19, 1902, Jim Younger walked into a hotel room in St. Paul. He wrote a note, "I am tired of life." Then he shot himself in the head. Cole was now the last one, the only survivor of the Younger. Brothers John had died young. Bob had died in prison. Jim had taken his own life. Cole stood at Jim's grave and wept for his brother, for the wasted years, for everything they had lost. But he did not give up. He could not. Jim's suicide strengthened Cole's resolve. He would live. He would tell their story. He would make sure their suffering meant something. The outlaw Cole Younger was dead, buried in that prison cell. The man who emerged was different. Humbled, transformed. He had spent a quarter century reflecting, learning, growing. Now he had a mission, a purpose greater than robbing banks. He would save young men from making his mistakes. He would become what he once hunted, a force for good. 1903, St. Paul, Minnesota, a large auditorium filled with people, hundreds of young men, students, factory workers, farm boys, all curious about the legendary outlaw. On stage stood a gray-haired man, 59 years old, wearing a simple suit, no guns, no mask, no bravado, just an old man with a story to tell. Cole Younger stepped to the podium. The room fell silent. He looked at those young faces, saw himself in them. The boy he had been before the war, before the violence, before the waste. He took a breath and spoke words he would repeat thousands of times. Young men, this is worth more than anything I could tell you. Crime does not pay. I have tried it, I know. After Jim's death, Cole could have retreated, hidden, lived quietly until his own end came. Instead, he chose to fight. Not with guns, with truth. He began giving lectures, First in Minnesota, then across the Midwest, eventually across America. He told his story, honestly, brutally, without excuses. He did not romanticize the outlaw life. He did not make himself a hero. He showed them the reality. I robbed banks, he told audiences. I thought I was striking back at injustice. I thought I was a rebel, a freedom fighter. I was a criminal, nothing more. I killed men. Some were lawmen doing their jobs. Some were innocent bystanders in the wrong place. I took fathers from children, husbands from wives. The money I stole, gone, spent, wasted, it brought me nothing but blood and regret. His voice never wavered. His eyes never looked away. The audiences sat transfixed. Cole showed them his scars, 11 bullet wounds. Each one a lesson. This one, he said, touching his shoulder, came from Northfield. When I refused to leave my brothers, I thought loyalty to my gang was honor. It was foolishness. We should never have been there. We should never have been outlaws. He lifted his shirt, showed the scar near his spine. This one almost killed me. The doctor said I should be dead. Maybe God kept me alive to deliver this message. Do not waste your life like I wasted mine. In 1903, Cole joined the Frank James Wild West show. Yes, that Frank James, Jesse's brother, Cole's old partner in crime. They had escaped Northfield together, then separated, lived different lives. Now they were united, two old outlaws, showing crowds what the West was really like. But Cole had conditions. He would not glorify crime. He would not make outlawry look exciting. His part of the show was a lecture, a warning, a plea. Newspapers reported on his lectures. Former outlaw preaches against crime. Cole Younger's message reaches youth. Young men approached him after shows, thanked him, told him they had been considering crime. His words changed their minds. Police chiefs invited him to speak in their cities. They claimed crime rates dropped after his visits. Was it true? Maybe. Maybe not. But Cole believed he was making a difference. And that belief sustained him. What made Cole effective was his honesty. He did not preach from a high place. He spoke as a failure, a man who had learned the hard way. I am not better than you, he told audiences. I am proof of what happens when you choose the wrong path. I spent 25 years in prison. My brother Bob died in a cell. My brother Jim put a gun to his head because he could not live with the shame. My brother John was killed by Pinkerton. Detectives, my friends died in the streets. Jesse James was shot in the back by a coward. This is what crime buys. Not adventure, not freedom, not glory, death, prison regret. People asked him constantly, "Do you regret Northfield?" "I regret every day of my outlaw life," he answered. Northfield, every robbery, every shot fired, every law broken. If I could undo it all, I would. But I cannot. All I can do is warn others. They asked, "What about Jesse? Do you still consider him a hero?" Cole's answer was careful. Jesse had been his friend, but honesty mattered more. Jesse was brave, loyal to his friends, but he was not a hero. He was a criminal, like me. We caused suffering. We destroyed lives. There is no glory in that. As Cole grew older, his message intensified. He knew his time was limited. He traveled constantly, spoke to anyone who would listen. Schools, churches, prisons. He visited prisons often, looked at young men behind bars. Saul himself, "You still have time," he told them. "When you get out, choose differently. Do not be like I was." Some listened. Some changed. Cole counted that as success. In 1915, Cole returned to Missouri, the place where it all began. He was 71 years old, tired, worn, but at peace. He visited his family's old farm, the land where his father was murdered, where his childhood ended. Nothing remained of the old house, just fields, trees, memories. Cole stood there for a long time, thinking about the boy he had been, the man he became, the decades wasted. A reporter asked him, "Do you have any regrets, Mr. Younger?" Cole looked at the land, at the sky, at the life he had lived. "I regret every day of my outlaw life," he said quietly. "If I could undo it, I would, but I cannot. All I can do is warn others. Tell them the truth, show them the cost. Crime does not pay. It destroys. It steals your life, your soul, your future. I know because I lived it." The reporter wrote down every word. Cole spent his final year in Lee's Summit, Missouri, near Kansas City, close to where he grew up. He lived simply, quietly, still gave occasional lectures when his health allowed. He corresponded with young men who wrote him letters, asking for advice, seeking guidance. He answered every letter, every single one. His message never changed, never wavered. Choose the right path. Learn from my mistakes. Do not waste your life. In early 1916, Cole felt his strength fading, his heart weakening. He had lived 40 years since Northfield, longer than most outlaws dreamed of. He had transformed himself, from criminal to counselor, from destroyer to teacher. He had faced his sins, owned his crimes, tried to make amends. Not everyone forgave him. Many never would, but he had tried, and that mattered. Cole Younger had one final message to deliver, and he would deliver it with his last breath. March 21st, 1916. Lee's Summit, Missouri. Cole Younger woke before dawn. His heart felt heavy, tired, like it was ready to stop. He was 72 years old. He had lived longer than any outlaw had a right to live, longer than Jesse, longer than his brothers, longer than most of the men he rode with. He had been given time, time to reflect, time to change, time to warn others. Now that time was ending. Cole moved slowly through his small house. Every step was effort. Every breath was work. His body carried the scars of 11 bullets, the weight of 25 years in prison, the burden of 72 years of life. But his mind was clear. His purpose was complete. He had spent 40 years trying to undo the damage of his first 32, trying to save young men from his mistakes. Had he succeeded? He would never know. Not fully, but he had tried. And that was something. Around noon, Cole felt pain in his chest, sharp, crushing. He sat down in his chair, took slow breaths, waited. He knew what this was. His heart was finally given out. He was not afraid. Death held no terror for a man who had faced it so many times. He thought about his brothers, Bob, Jim, John, waiting for him on the other side. He thought about his father, murdered when Cole was just 17, the event that started everything. He thought about the men he had killed, the lives he had destroyed, the families he had broken, and he thought about the young men he had warned, the lectures he had given, the letters he had written. Not had it been enough? Had his redemption meant anything? At 2:15 in the afternoon, Cole Younger closed his eyes. His heart stopped. His breathing ceased. The last of the Younger brothers was gone. The final member of the James Younger gang had fallen. Not by bullet, not by rope, but by time. Thousands attended his funeral. Curiosity seekers, former outlaws, young men whose lives he had changed. The newspapers wrote obituaries. Last of the famous outlaws dies. Cole Younger's remarkable life ends. Some called him a hero. Some called him a villain. Most recognized he was both. And neither. He was a man, flawed, broken, but redeemed. So what do we learn from Cole Younger? What does his story teach us? First, that our choices matter, every single one. Cole was 17 when his father was murdered. He had a choice: forgive or seek revenge. He chose revenge. And that choice defined the next 15 years of his life. 15 years of violence, crime, blood, waste. One choice, one moment, changed everything. Second, that crime never pays. Never. Cole robbed banks for 10 years, stole thousands of dollars, lived the outlaw life. And what did it buy him? 25 years in prison, dead brothers, a lifetime of regret. The money was gone, the freedom was gone, the years were gone, all that remained was suffering. Third, that it is never too late to change. Cole was 32 when he entered prison. Middle-aged by the standards of his time, he could have stayed bitter, angry, broken. Instead, he transformed himself, became a better man, found purpose in warning others. His last 40 years redeemed his first 30-2 not completely. Nothing could undo the damage he had caused, but he tried, and his efforts mattered. Fourth, that consequences are real and permanent. Bob Younger died at 35, tuberculosis from his wounds. In a prison cell. Jim Younger could not live with his shame. Put a bullet in his own head. Jesse James was shot in the back by a friend seeking reward money. Violence breeds violence. Crime breeds suffering. Sin breeds death. Always. Cole Younger died over 100 years ago, but his message lives on. We face choices every day, not about robbing banks, but about integrity, honesty, character, the shortcut that seems easy, the lie that seems harmless, the compromise that seems small. Each choice writes our story, shapes our future, defines our legacy. Cole's message echoes across the decades. Crime does not pay. I have tried it. I know, but it goes deeper than crime. Any path built on deception leads to destruction. Any life built on shortcuts ends in regret. Cole lived long enough to see his mistakes. Most people do not get that chance. Jesse died at 34. Never knew regret. Never changed. Billy the Kid died at 21. Butch Cassidy probably in his 40s, but Cole lived to 72, long enough to understand what he had lost, long enough to try to make it right. That is the gift and curse of a long life. You see the consequences. You feel the weight. You know the truth. So here is the question. The one that matters. The one Cole would ask if he were here. What choice are you making today that you will regret tomorrow? What path are you walking that leads to destruction? What shortcut seems worth it now but will cost you everything later? Think about it. Really think. Because Cole Younger's story is a warning written in blood and time. He gave up 15 years to crime, 25 years to prison, 40 years to regret. His brothers died young. His friends died violent. His life was wasted, all because of choices. Choices made by a 17-year-old boy who chose revenge over healing. You have a choice right now. Today, this moment, the right path or the easy path, integrity or compromise, truth or deception. Choose wisely, because you will live with that choice 4 years, 4 decades, for the rest of your life. Cole Younger spent 72 years learning one lesson. Let me save you the trouble. Crime does not pay. Shortcuts do not work. Violence does not heal. Revenge does not satisfy. Only integrity endures. Only truth lasts. Only redemption matters. Cole Younger died on March 21st, 1916. His body is buried in Lee Summit, Missouri, but his message lives on. In every young person who hears his story and chooses differently, in every life saved from the path he walked. He failed as an outlaw, but he succeeded as a teacher. His crimes are remembered, but his redemption is celebrated. He wasted half his life, but he spent the other half warning others not to make the same mistake. That is his legacy. That is his gift to us. Do not waste your life. Choose wisely. Learn from his mistakes. Crime does not pay. He tried it, he knows, and now, so do you.